Alright guys, we're gonna do a little quick review of what happened. Let's go through the charts so we don't waste any time. Here we have the market BTC dominance. As you can see, it kind of shot up because everybody's going from altcoins to Bitcoin. I expect this to bounce off here and just continue upwards, meaning if you're in altcoins, think about converting. The market cap, we have a support here at 1.4 about. The 2 trillion one way up here. We're not regaining that anytime soon. The next one is here, 1.4, and then we go all the way down to 1.2. Not a great outcome considering we were about above 3 at the high. The US dollar currency index gaining strength, which is bad for Bitcoin as well. They're inversely correlated, but it seems like it's retesting this, so we'll see what happens. Maybe that tanks too, or it goes up. I would imagine it's going to go up. Everybody's sort of in a risk-off sentiment. It wouldn't surprise me if it goes up, which is bad for Bitcoin, at least with the correlation. The ETF, the stock market ETF, right now this is going to be interesting. It's at 221, down 10% from all-time high. Usually when it falls this amount, the Feds kind of jump in and stop it or triggers some fail-safes. But the next level's down here. Right, that's another 5% from the current price. We're going to see that in the opening. The opening of the stock market will be... It's going to open in exactly 20 hours, 20 and a half hours. So mark that, 20 and a half hours from this time. Today, what we're looking for is the opening, the futures opening, which are going to open at 6 p.m. Eastern time, right, in about 5 hours. And it'll tell us a lot about what's going to happen the next week, whether we're going down quickly or not. Here is the, let's actually go through liquidations. We had about $1 billion plus, then another half, 600 billion. It was bad, right? Bad, a lot of liquidations. With the overall open interest, it's still weird, right? We dropped below. We're at the lowest point. We're underneath after this large spike, but Binance is still above it. So Binance was the one that has just this weird ratio of open interest relative to any other exchange. It's really them. Every other exchange is flushed out completely. You can see the aggregated open interest flushed out much more than before, but Binance is still high. Fear and greed. Let's do a yearly. We're at the absolute lows almost. Right, the absolute lows are about 10. We're almost there, which resembles the sentiment of the market in general. Funding rates, basically even or negative. Negative for ETH on Binance, on Bybit, FTX is negative. So, but it barely started being negative. That's sort of the scary element of it. This should have been negative for a week, 2 weeks, right? It just barely started being negative, which means the shorts aren't really stacking yet. Now let's look at what we can do. We had a massive dump, right? The dump was here. I spoke about the trade I was going to do there. Went down about 30% in general, right? If you count the lowest wick, let's say from up here and here, it's about 30%. Here's what I expect. Today, the CME gap is going to be filled up here. It coincides with this downward resistance. I think it's going to bounce off here and then probably cascade lower. That's what I'm planning. So if I see it going up a little bit right now, it should start going up soon or tonight, right? The CME opens at I think 3 p.m. my time, so in a few hours, right, about 4 or 5 hours, 3, 4, 5 hours, somewhere around there. You can check it yourself. This is the stack coin indicator. It actually tells me when the CME opens, so I don't have to really think about the time frame too much. I expect it to go up here and get rejected by this downward slope. That downward slope has been the line from all the way up here. It's a very significant downward resistance. That's how I'm going to play it. If I see it going up and it touches near this point, about 2,600, 25.99 to be specific is what I'm going to enter. And then I'm going to short from there. That's the plan. Because I don't, at this point, the market sentiment is so bad that I don't think, especially with the risk-off mindset of the traditional markets and the correlation between the traditional markets and crypto, it seems like we're going down another lower leg. Is that 31,000, 30,000? I expect there to be a fight though here. Sorry, this is Ethereum. When we're talking about Bitcoin, right? I expect there to be a fight there. The same applies for the CME gap for Bitcoin. The gap is actually coinciding with about 37,000, maybe 500, around there. That's where the CME gap is about here. So same thing. If it goes up here, that you know what I'm planning on doing. But this lower leg, right, about 31,000, 30,000, this, I don't think it's going to chop through it like butter, even if it's the carnage worst case scenario possible, right? If the ultimate goal is it's going to go lower, I think it's going to do quite a bit of consolidation around here and then probably do something like that, similar to how it was earlier in the year, if that's the plan. I don't think so. It's very scary what's going on right now. I don't think there's really no good outlook because there's not a lot of volume. If you check the daily, right, and you check the volume, we got a nice spike right here from all the selling, but other than that, there's really, look at this average. You can actually turn on the average, the volume MA, right? You see the actual level as opposed to back here, massive interest. I mean, if you check the interest on Google Trends, it's just non-existent, right? Couple that with the sentiment of the traditional markets, and it's not going to be great. On Bitcoin, we have this automatically drawn resistance line, right? From all the way to top. It's kind of what we touched last time, and it just collapsed. It seems like each time we touch it, it collapses. There's a touch here and here. It would be interesting if there's going to be a relief bounce. If it touches this, I mean, expect a massive sell-off. If it goes down and maybe starts ranging like previously, right, around this area, I think this will be a good guide to where it might turn around. If it passes this, it's wonderful. It means we're hit the bottom of, that's basically what it means to bottom out, right? You would have this massive trend line, downward sloping trend line, and usually when it's broken, then you start ranging sideways. This applies on smaller time frames, right? When you're watching little mini drops, you can use the same type of methodology to figure out when it's potentially plateauing, maybe for a bit, or reversing. So it's a very important line. You can draw it yourself from top of the wicks. There's not much more. If you take the top to down here and you look at the volume, you actually kind of have to go to, another exchange. Coinbase gives you the total amount of Bitcoin as opposed to the dollar value. 160 billion. Right, 160 billion worth of volume. Let's look from the tip to the bottom right here. Right, almost twice the volume, right? 300 billion. So with about this half the volume, we went 50%. This is 50%, but it's almost half the volume. So that's the update. I think you should, if you're in, you need to figure out what's best for you. Can we get a little jump back? Sure. I doubt it's gonna, if it's a relief rally, I doubt it's gonna pass this point, like 41,000. I doubt it. But it can't go too far either. So the good thing is this is probably gonna hold. I think it's massively undervalued once down here. And I have a good idea that I think people are gonna start actually, well, the Fed is gonna start changing their tone a bit, making it more dovish, because the stock markets are just kind of collapsing. I mean, look at this. This is not a great look, right? 10% already down. Even if we're topping out, we can at least sort of expect maybe a bounce to here, right? If we get good news when the stock markets opens, or when the futures opens, we'll know in general the direction, and then tomorrow when the markets open, we'll see what happens. So potentially, I mean, we might have like a good 5% bounce. That's on the more hopeful side. Maybe just ranges more. That would be ideal, right? I doubt the Fed is going to let the markets just collapse, especially under Biden's watch. I think any president would try to avoid this massive cataclysmic event occurring on their watch. So I'm hopeful about that, but who knows how much pain there is after that. This should give you an idea of just, if you have the idea that crypto is this hedge and your money is safe in crypto, you have to understand that as it's correlated to the markets, it's going to act sort of like the stock market, except probably much more magnified by a certain percentage or factor. You need to understand that point. So don't be one of these people who say, hold on, hodl forever. You don't need to have something you held and you had a 300% profit and you decided to let it go down to zero, negative, maybe even, and just hold it for years. Right? This is why you take profit as the price rises, and you keep that money so you can purchase it when it falls much lower. So as it's going up, if you buy it here, you want to sell at these key points, a little bit here, maybe a little bit here, right? Here, maybe. You want to keep hitting these points and selling a little bit by little. It's the only way to really stay safe and keep your money for these giant dumps, because they are going to happen. Although the outlook for crypto is good, I don't know about regulation wise, but the underlying technology is very good. It's still a new unregulated space and people are going to take advantage of it, and you don't need much to dump the price heavily. I mean, if Michael Saylor sold all of his on the market, you'd see the price fall, who knows, 50%. So be safe. We're going to post more from here on. Everybody's in a negative mood, and it's kind of justified. You've had a lot of YouTubers tell you to keep holding on. It's going to reverse. It's going to reverse here. This is the for sure bottom. Right, this is the bottom. They probably sold, or they made their money in Bybit referrals and things like that. You can't trust these people. Holding on until it goes till you're like back at zero profit or below is not a smart idea. Because if this pattern continues, I mean, what are we gonna wait? You're gonna wait another half a year for it to maybe get to the top? What if it goes lower? What does that mean? Maybe it creates a structure here, then maybe here, maybe bounces down again, goes to... We're at a point where if you didn't take profit at all of these chances, you got greedy, you heard too many stories by too many YouTubers, you're kind of in a scenario where it's unlike, I would say, the chances of it getting back here are going to depend so much on what happens with the Fed that I'm not sure. A lot of people are holding bags and they're scared. So as soon as you get a relief rally, they're going to dump more. They're going to sell. People are not by any measure in an upward sort of mood, and we've went from 3,000 to, it's like 1,000% in a year. The next year could be brutal, could be slow. I clearly, I hope for a bounce, consolidation and bounce, but the volume is low. Everything, the morale, the fear, the outlook, people have gotten burned. So we'll see what happens.